All right, so we'll start now. Welcome everyone. So this afternoon's PD, my name is Sandra DeBarber. So myself, I'm a teacher of the deaf. I'm involved in the AATD SA committee, the PD committee. So I would like to acknowledge the country. I acknowledge that the training this afternoon is happening on the traditional lands of the Ghana people and Adelaide Aboriginal group. I respect the elders past and present and the future emerging. I acknowledge the deaf leaders, past and present, and the future as well. So AATD SA means the Australian Association of the Teachers of the Deaf. We, here in South Australia, we advocate and support for deaf and hard of hearing children and students. So for more information, you've got the website www.aaTDSA.org.au. Thank you for joining online today. So we have this is going to be recorded and you can access it later. Sorry, I'm looking up and down, sorry. So if any feedback, please submit it through the website. Please post your name and let us know through email if you would like the recording and to receive your certificate at the end. If you want to ask questions, type them in the chat box or the chat room. We've got someone monitoring it so we can receive your questions and answer them in due time. We've got a sound field system. So this room will have a microphone that's passed around if needed to ask questions. So thank you to those who travelled to come here today. Thank you for signing in. If you haven't done that now, there's a form at the front of the room. The toilets are just outside. Emergency exit. Just follow the signs to outside. Let me know as well if you would not like to be in the photos. Just let me know so that I can make those changes. And thank you for following social distancing as well. Any feedback, please go through the AATD SA website. This session is number 4:30 to 5:30. So now I'm going to introduce Claire. So Claire Lodes has worked for many years, 41 years, in the education department. She started teaching in 1978 as a mainstream teacher. She then moved over into deaf education in 1987 as a graduate ToD. Graduated in 1990. And then she moved on to Armata as the principal. Thank you. So Claire is still involved in the AATD and helping with preparation for deaf and hard of hearing students. She's had many different positions in the AATD committee and as the National Association of Teachers of the Deaf. So currently she is the president of South Australia. In 2015, Claire was given a life membership for South Australia. And then in 2018, she received Des Power Award. We really appreciate Claire coming today. And please welcome Claire now into the round of applause. Thank you.
Just got to get out of the way of the light. Okay, can people see me online at home? Yes. All right, so today we're going to talk about the professional standards for teachers and how you can use the standards to hold up. Pardon? Oh, you're lagging behind everybody, Heather.
The internet.
It's not you, it's the internet.
That's much better now.
Yeah, it's better now. Okay, so we're going to talk about how you can use the standards and the AATD elaborations to improve your practice. All right, so the AITSL standards for teachers outline for all of us what teachers should know and be able to do, and there are 4 career stages. So you've got the graduate stage, you have the proficient, the highly accomplished, and the leads. The teacher, the deaf elaborations are based on the AITSL standards, but they are specific to the skills needed by teachers of the deaf. So they describe what the National Committee, at the time they started developing them, which was probably about 2014, 15, 16, what they thought was important for teachers of the deaf to know. The elaborations don't take the place of the AITSL standards, they need to be used together. So if you're a graduate, for a teacher of the deaf, it's someone who's finished their training, right? If you're a graduate...
Sorry, she's frozen.
Is that because...
The internet's lagging.
Okay.
She's just really loving that sign.
That's right. So is it her internet that's lagging?
You had a pop-up just before that said the internet's not stable.
Yeah, no, she's back now. I don't know. Mine might be mine. It's fine for her. Might be my internet.
It's your 8 gigs, Braga.
8 gigabytes, I said. No, it's this building that doesn't like 5G because it's a 5G phone. Okay, so if you're a graduate teacher there, it's about you coming out of your training. If you are a graduate teacher, it is coming out of your training as well. So if you look at the first 2 levels of the standards, they are actually all about knowledge, because they are the things you need to know, rather than when you get to the proficient stage, they are things you should be able to do. So you need to keep that in mind. And you may be, for some of you who have been working a really long time, be highly accomplished or a lead teacher. But the focus of the graduate stage is on, when you look at the teacher of the deaf staff and you look at the graduate stage, that's the stuff we expect as an association for teachers to know about. So last year we looked at the universities and what they were doing, training teachers of the deaf, and then mapped what they were doing against our standards to see that they were covering all of those things.
Really?
Yeah, most of them. Most of them didn't. I went too far. So, well, you know, people can lie. And what you say you do and what you actually do is not always the same, right? What teachers put on their program is not always what happens in the classroom. So yeah, you know, and that's same thing happens in universities, I'm sure. So the elaborations were never printed as a document. They were made with the cooperation of AITSL though. So we did negotiate with AITSL and they gave us funding towards the getting them professionally put together as a document. They're available now on both the AATD SA website and the NAATD website, but they were developed to define the knowledge and the skills and abilities of teachers of the deaf. But you do need to use them in collaboration with the AITSL standards. So, The elaborations is made up of the standard, the focus area, and then the descriptors of what it looks like. So if we're looking at the content and teaching strategies, in the graduate level, we're demonstrating knowledge. In the proficient level, we're applying knowledge. In the highly accomplished, we're supporting our colleagues. And in the lead, we're leading an initiative. So as you can see, as you move along, the verbs change and what's expected of the teacher at each level increases because they're expected to be doing more independent work for themselves. And so there's the AITSL standards in case you haven't seen them. Same thing, except that if you're not sure what the practice actually means, then there are illustrations of practice, and there's lots of them in different schools and in different places around Australia because the AITSL standards are Australian documents. So I guess if we remember that improving classroom practice happens when our teaching and learning is visible, when we collaborate with colleagues, when we observe each other teach, and when we receive regular feedback. So it's actually important to improve our classroom practice because continuous improvement is a really important thing. And so we do need to make sure that we provide opportunities for staff to collaborate with each other, to observe each other, and also for staff to receive regular feedback. It's also important to negotiate what staff want with their feedback, rather than you deciding you're going to feedback on. Although there are times when you need it. So the professional practice domain, which is standards 3, 4, and 5, actually tell us what good teachers and good teaching looks like. And I think it's really important that we refer back to the elaborations and to the standards because it's then not about you as a leader making a judgment, you're using something to actually make the judgment with. When I first went into leadership, there certainly wasn't anything that documented it in a succinct way as to what good teaching practice looked like. And we know that a good teacher is not necessarily somebody who is an image of ourselves. And I'm sure a lot of us, when we looked at good practice, when we went in to observe teachers, we watched them and went, I wouldn't do that, mate. Are they doing it right or wrong? So now you've got something that guides you and guides how you're going to feed back to teachers as well. And I think the other thing is really important with the professional domain, the professional practice domain, is if you have concerns about a teacher, and let's be honest, there are some teachers we have concerns about, then this can help you clarify your thinking. Because sometimes it's actually about our personal opinion as opposed to what is good practice. Other times, you may have concerns, and if you really have major concerns about it, then you need to use the AITSL standards and the elaborations to support where you go next. So if teachers can use, and you can use the elaborations for classroom observation, so it's working with the teacher around identifying the standard that they want their feedback on, then negotiating a time with you to discuss it and how the observation or how you're going to give that feedback and when it's going to take place, do the observation, you provide that written feedback and use the elaborations and then you keep repeating. And so it's a continuous improvement loop. And we know that feedback is important for the improving classroom practice, and so it is important for improving practice for teachers as well. And here I say for ourselves as leaders, it's useful to get feedback, and there are 360-degree processes that you can use. The AITSL website will give you some processes if you're looking for feedback around your own practice.
And I guess, so this is about observing in the classroom, but
Oh, you're gonna get to that, sorry.
All right. Thank you, Desmond. I'm going to get to it, right? Because when I did the stuff for leaders, I actually looked more about the nuts and bolts. Okay? So, standards define what good teaching looks like. They're a collaborative tool to work with staff about what they are good at and where they could seek improvement. The focus should be on standards 3, 4, and 5, and these relate to classroom practice. But as a leader, I would say you need to do daily walkthroughs where you do both informal and formal observations. Daily walkthroughs are one of the most powerful things you can do as a leader because you actually know what's happening in classrooms. You only have to be there for 5 or 10 minutes in a classroom. You actually can talk to the kids about their learning. And I've stopped working now, but last year I had 9 months off, 3 terms off, while I used up another service leave before I retired. But I went to the seniors graduation at Darlington Primary School, and 2 of the kids came up to me and said, "Miss Lowe, we really miss you." And you think, yeah, of course, they're just being nice. Anyway, they said, "We really miss you coming and talking to us about what we're doing with our learning." So that was really positive, okay? Because it tells me that the kids see it's been really important. They're waiting for somebody to come and talk to them about their learning. But kids see the leader as wanting to know about their learning and also seeing the leader sees what's happening in classrooms all the time. Because we can read every program that the teacher hands up. That doesn't necessarily mean that's what's happening in the classroom. And we need to do walkthroughs on a regular basis. The one thing I would suggest you do is change the time. When I first started doing walkthroughs, I used to always go through the literacy box, so I had a really good handle on what was happening in literacy in the school, but I had no idea what was happening in maths, because I was always watching them do literacy. Probably you go to where your strengths are. But it also means that, because we know that not every day do we have the perfect list. And so going at different times, you see how teachers cope across a period of time. So you're not making a judgment based on one observation. It's actually on a period of time. So, and you as a leader should be able to describe what's happening in classrooms. So when a parent makes a complaint, you can say, "I haven't necessarily seen it." It's a really important thing to do. So walkthroughs, most valuable thing you can do as a leader. And for those people with support services, I get my advice would be, at some stage you need to shadow the staff you're line managing. Because I think that is just as important. And that is how you manage your workload and do that as well. And it's not so easy to do nowadays because you have larger numbers of staff. Whereas when I was manager of the services to the APY lands, there were 3 staff and we all travelled together. So you could always see what was going on. When I was the principal of the Western Area Centre for Hearing Impaired Children, which was a visiting teacher service, I would drive from Whyalla to Port Lincoln and spend the day with the teacher to bed, or I drive to Kadina and spend the day with the teacher to bed. But it gave me a much better understanding of the kids and what the teacher was doing. And sometimes the teacher would say, "I want you to show me how to do this." And that's the stuff about the skill development bookkeeping. But we need to use the performance development processes within the department. Hang on a minute. So everybody needs to have a performance development plan. I haven't looked at the performance development plan for a good 12 months, but everybody should have identified 3 areas of development. I believe there's still 3 areas on the plan. And thank you, Sandra. There are 2 areas I've always had people have them closely linked to the school improvement plan, or whatever the plan is for their service where they're working. And one area should be a personal plan. And the standards provide a very good basis for identifying an area. We'll just look over the interpreter. Alright, okay. And the focus needs to be on practice and not knowledge. You could be looking at professional partnerships, particularly if you're working in support services. And professional practice is probably a really good place to start, and how people work with each other, how people are working in schools, are they supporting schools, what development do you see coming from the school over time. So, when you're observing staff through walkthrough, one of the things you can do is ask a question. And one option is to look at your SIT goal. So if you were doing phonics, or if you're looking at strategies in maths, or looking at how the vocabulary of kids is extended in maths, you ask that question and you spend your 10 minutes in the classroom during that maths lesson looking to see how teachers are developing kids' vocabulary. And if I'm doing that, then I'm letting teachers know that's what I'm actually looking for. Right? This is what I'm going to look for over the next 2 weeks, and then de-identify the information so that you can feed back to staff about, because what you want to see is if you've got a key area, and it might be questions in maths and how you are developing kids' language and using questioning in maths, then that might be a whole of school focus. And so you want to de-identify the information rather than embarrass people, or just say this one's doing a really good job and that one's not. But say this is what I'm seeing in classes. This is where we need to improve, because it's about whole school changing in practice. And so that's the beauty of having a question. So teachers know the types of thing you're looking for, but this is so that we can then look at improvement, because it's about everybody improving, not just the individual. That making sense?
So I'm guessing, like in a support services context, you have a behaviour coach, a special educator, and a special educator hearing, and you can have a question related to the AITSL Standards elaborations that covers all three.
That's right. Yeah, because if you're looking at the standards, and they're not so much the elaborations document, but you can have a look and go, okay, here is how is the special educator, how are people initiating, conversations or handing over power in a meeting to parent or whatever, or how they working with supporting teachers. So you'd be looking at a specific focus within the JMP. And all the JMPs have got generic bits and pieces in it.
Sorry, the JMPs, what's that?
Job and person specification. So if you're going to apply for a job in support services, you have to get a job, download the job and person specifications, and it has a list of what the job is. And it will tell you what the job is, and so therefore that would be the basis for actually then going, where does it fit within the standards? And then getting feedback. And one of the things is using the staff to observe each other. So, and I'll get to that after, but you might need to do formal observation. And a formal observation is where you sit there for 30 or 40 minutes. But it may be because staff want more personalised feedback. So, you've got a teacher who's on provisional registration, and so you need to put in more personalised feedback, because they need documentation and evidence for their registration. And so they do need that feedback. You might have staff who want to become highly accomplished or lead teachers, and they will need professional, more personalised feedback, and they will need that documentation as well. You may have staff who are managing poor performance, and you know that's a reality. And so, if you've got that, you need to keep very, very good documentation for it. Otherwise, the process goes on and on and on and on. Or you may have staff of whom you are concerned about. So, if you've got that, you need to start collecting that information. And I guess one of the things I would say is, if you've got staff you've got concerns about, and one of the things you think is, you know, if I had a kid, I wouldn't want them in that room. If I had a kid, I wouldn't want them getting the service from that person. Then you need to do something about it. Because every kid has the right to a good quality education. And if that's where you're going, be sure you've read through the processes that apply for all different reasons and seek support. You have the equity unit, the behaviour, the poor performance unit, I'm not sure, I can't remember what they're called, how quickly it vanishes from your brain. But you have the unit that will go through the processes with you, and if you're at this end, staff on managing poor performance, or you've started to have concerns about, then you need to make sure as a leader you get support. Because it is a very tricky process to go through. And if you don't actually have that support, then the process could go on and on and on. Although I believe the new government is going to shorten the process. That was part of their one of their election promises. But we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see what happens in relation to that. But the beauty of the AITSL standards and the elaborations document is that they tell you what good practice looks like. It is not you deciding what good practice looks like. And so you use them as well. And if we are working with staff about continuous improvement, then we hopefully won't get to the other end. And you know, it can be a harrowing exercise at the other end. And I must admit, I was never very good at managing poor performance with staff and staff who have concerns about, because I'd sit there in the classroom doing an observation and then go, no, I can't bear this. And I can go for the lesson. Because it is really difficult to watch a teacher not being able to teach well and kids just doing what they want to do. It's a really tricky thing. So, when you go through that process, you've actually got to do the formal observation. So me stepping in all the time didn't help the process. Something to think about. Normally though, observations should be negotiated with the individual, what's going to be observed, when it's going to happen, and what's the purpose of the observation. And you're hoping that people are going, come and observe me. I want you to do this. That I want the feedback. So the staff are asking you for the feedback. It's not you going, this is what we will be doing. Focus on one or two areas. Don't focus on the whole lot, because you'll never sit there and see it all. And then give time for reflection and review, and follow it up with a meeting, and then provide some written feedback. Because it's that feedback that people will use over time, and that's there for you to go, okay, yes, I did give this feedback, this is what I observed, these are where our next steps were, and then we begin the cycle. Right. The continuance.
And just for those that are support services, so you're not physically with them, would you say like them recording themselves or a recording of a Teams meeting with another teacher is a way around doing an observation?
It could be. You've got to make sure in that case, if you're going to record it, with another teacher, whether they're going to be happy to be recorded. That would be the thing, because while you're looking for feedback for yourself, the teacher might feel like you're recording for them, you know, and that they're going to be, somebody's going to look at them and go, shit, what are they doing? You know, but they're going to go, oh, well, is somebody going to comment about, you know, that I couldn't answer the question? Because sometimes when we have meetings with teachers about a kid who we're talking about, you know, over the years, I've had teachers say wonderful things to me about kids, and you think, how well do you know that child? So, you know, you have these little things going on in your brain, and so a classroom teacher might not be that happy having that discussion recorded. You know, I'm sure the teacher who I've never forgotten at a school, and you're on your peninsula, who I said, well, how's the child going? And she said, she's doing really well. You know, she's excellent, blah, blah, blah. And then we were talking about something else, and she said, but if you like her, she's doing really well, which was like, what do you actually mean? And so when she explained it, well, she'd gone, yes, she's got a hearing loss, and so she can do these things. But she was 2 years behind her peers. But she thought because she had a hearing loss that was acceptable. And so, you know, if that was recorded, you know, it could be, particularly if you then, you know, think, well, something needs to be done about this. So, yeah, it's a tricky one. I think one of the things, if you're going out with other service providers, is actually about getting that feedback from your service providers, because I think if they're there, then, you know, they can give you some.
I think there's lots of multidiscipline opportunities where there's speech psychology, behaviour, hearing, all in one spot, so you can get feedback from your colleagues probably easier in a natural context.
Yeah, that's right, and probably
without recording it because they're physically there.
That's exactly right. Yeah, because I think if you've got a good relationship with the teacher, that might be all right. But you'd have to have developed that relationship with somebody. You know, it's an option. As you can seek feedback from, a school or out in your service, and how they sort of, and be very clear using the AITSL standards about as to what you're looking for, and then pick some core people to give feedback. And one of the things is, if you're a leader, one of the things on the AITSL standard, they talk about 360 feedback, and so that means you get feedback from parents, from staff, from children, from your peers, and from line managers. And so you get the same questions, and you get that feedback from all of them. So you could do the same type of thing in support services. Is get that, you know, from a range of people that you interact with, and get that feedback, because we all need the feedback to improve our practice, and the way to get it is, you know, is different in different ways. So yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. The other ways you can do observations is you can do instructional rounds. There's 100 books on it in instructional rounds. So, in simple ways to do it is releasing others to observe other teachers to seek the answer to a question about a classroom practice. So it could be focused on a specific program you're introducing. It could be focused on your SIT goal. And so you have the one question, and you release a group of people to go and observe in every classroom. So you could do that with the school services staff, right? And normally you do instructional rounds when you're looking at whole school change or looking at change processes in the school. The other thing you can do in a partnership or in a district is you actually release teachers from across schools to actually go and see what's happening in classes. And you have one question, and they go in and observe. 10 minutes is all you need. And then they come back and they brainstorm, and then they give a report. You can do the same thing with kids, and getting kids to have a question, and it might be around, you know, what questions are being used in the classroom, and they can go in and observe. So kids can give feedback across the school around the same type of thing, doing an instructional round. And the other one is teachers observing teachers. There used to be a training program around teachers observing teachers, but I don't know if they do it. So it's actually groups of threes, and the teachers identify their own area for feedback. So, or you can determine it as a staff or as a group, and you release the staff, or you could get them to undertake their observations in their and to meet and discuss it within their non-instruction time. Shouldn't call it non-instruction time. What is it now?
Still,
No, I don't think it is. Yeah. I think there's a proper HR name for it. It wasn't called non-instruction time, but I can't think what it is. If you're going to do, it's not face-to-face teaching, not face-to-face teaching. Because you've got about 21 hours of face-to-face teaching in a primary school, and the rest of the time is not face-to-face teaching. But teachers observing teachers could be part of not face-to-face teaching. Right? There's it's a variation on non-time, but that's another completely different thing. But one of the things is that teachers have more control when they're doing teachers observing teachers about what they want their peers to observe them teaching, and they reciprocate. So Jasmine, Sandra and I sit down and go, I want you to have a look at this. So Jasmine and Sandra come and watch me teach, then we go and watch Jazz teach, and then we go and watch Sandra teach, and then we have a discussion about what we saw and, what was good, what wasn't good, and, ways to improve it, and maybe where we're going to go the next stages. And it's a useful thing to continue over time, because people get more comfortable with having people in the classroom watching. Because I think that's the big thing is, classrooms are much more open than they used to be. And as I said to the group before, we don't have so much, brown paper on the wall, on the window, so that people walking down the corridor can't see in the window. But the more people who have others observing them, the more comfortable they feel. Because everybody feels slightly, what are they going to do? What happens if I do the wrong thing? And so it can be scary. So
don't want to get picked on.
That's right. I don't want to get picked on. And that I think that is the key thing, because if you don't do it regularly and leaders are not observing regularly, then people think, what am I doing wrong, and why do they want to come into my classroom? And I think that is the really important thing, that it should be part of our ongoing practice. And so the more, it should be a positive experience, that's right. And the more we do it, the more it is a positive experience. And, it's the saying, you should have 5 credits in the bank before you make a withdrawal. So particularly, the angry parent. So you have the angry parent. If you've got a relationship with the angry parent or with the child who is always naughty, then if you develop that relationship and you have those positive interactions with them, you can have the negative interactions. But if you don't have those positive interactions, when you've got a negative interaction, then it can be a problem. And that's the same for when you're giving feedback to teachers. If you only ever give negative feedback to them, then it becomes a confrontational system. Whereas you need to have developed that process around using the positive as well as the negative. Because we all know we don't all work 100% every day. And so therefore it's useful for people to say, well, I saw you did this. How have you thought about this? It's not, you did this wrong. I think that's the other thing as well. And we do it with kids. Sometimes we don't always do it with our teachers. because sometimes we are snowed under with a whole lot of other work, which sometimes is busy work handed to us by the department. So, when you do, after you've done the observation, you do need to follow up with them. So, and to follow up, you need to talk about what did you see, what you actually did see, not what you thought you saw. What follow through needs to occur, and what are the next steps? Classroom observations should not be just used as a big stick. They're not there to say you've done this wrong and this is wrong and that's wrong and that's wrong. It's got to be around improving the teaching and learning outcomes for kids. And so if we only ever use a big stick, use them as a big stick, then you're not going to get improvement. And if you think about teaching, it's a funny profession because we do a whole lot of stuff collegially. Then we go away into our little room and we work with 30 kids or 5 kids or 10 kids, and then we don't always interact. And we, can shut our doors and we can, pretend the world's a different place. But to actually improve what we do, we actually need to see what other people do. We actually need to talk about what we're doing as teachers, because that's how we actually learn and change. And so in today's world, where you could have your staff for the next 30 years, where they're not going to move from school to school. Like when I first started teaching, we, they couldn't get anybody in the country, so I ended up in the country because I won the lottery. But then they brought in 10-year, 10 in the metropolitan, but people still had to move every 10 years. Now, you get appointed to a school, you're there for life, unless you apply for another job somewhere else. But you need, and they're not that thick on the ground, particularly if you're in deaf. So you have a staff that could be there for the next 30 years as well, who can then go into, well, this is how I've always done it. I've done it this way. I'm not changing. We've always done it this way, and we can all recognise people like that within the system. So we need processes and systems in place, whether we're in support services, because people go, well, what's done it this way? I don't need to do anything else. Nobody's contacted me. I don't need to contact the school. So they've got all these processes in their head, but they're not looking about improvement. And so that becomes a problem for the system as a whole. And as leaders, we are the ones who need to make those changes. So we need to be developing and supporting teachers to develop. So if I'm in support services, what do? Well, support services staff are working in leadership positions, let's be honest, that's what they are, right? They get paid at a higher rate. And so I would be using highly accomplished and lead teacher levels for support services staff. Because if you look at their practice continuum, you would see that it's about working with teachers. It's about changing teachers' practice. It's small group, one-on-one in highly accomplished, and lead is with a bigger cohort. And so I would be looking at those parts of the document and also having a look to see where it fits within the role description. Because, and I haven't looked at the job and person specifications, for a while in deaf education, so I can't really comment much about them, but the role statement will tell you what you're looking for, what teachers and special educators hearing are meant to be doing. And that will help you understand, using the elaborations, what that looks like and what you can expect as special educator hearing to be supporting schools with kids who are deaf and hard of hearing to do. So looking at standard 5 and 6, particularly at the lead level, that describes the collaboration with staff, and don't forget knowledge and classroom practice. Because you actually can't work with staff much if you don't have to know everything. You never have to know everything. Even as a leader, you don't have to know everything. You can always say, I'll get back. As long as you do get back to people, because that's pretty important. Because sometimes people say, I'll get back to you, and they never do it. Not good service. Not good services, not good practices either. So if you want more information, have a look at Fleet. They always have training. They have training around that HR provide around classroom observations for leaders. So teachers and leaders can see what training is available. If you need more beyond supporting teachers to improve their practice within the process, seek help from state office. Talk to your principal or your line manager. Use a peer, one of your peers, to reflect on what you're doing and ask someone to take the observation for you as well. I know when I had somebody I was managing for performance with, it was really useful that the leadership coach actually came and did observations with as well, and we'd sit down, because sometimes you don't know, it's useful to know is what I'm seeing, is poor practice or is it just me? So having somebody else do observations and then having those discussions with you, or even sometimes when it's good practice, because sometimes you need to check your own levels of understanding as well as a leader, because you don't always get it right. But having a peer or somebody to work alongside of and help with those observations, particularly for managing poor performance. When you're managing poor performance, if the teacher's not going to make it, that's their career gone. So you've got to make sure that you are doing the right thing, but that you've got it right. Because sometimes you're just not sure. And the AITSL materials and the NAATD elaborations provide you with the materials to describe what good practice in a classroom looks like. And they've been agreed on at a national level. So the AITSL standards are a national document, and the NAATD elaborations are a national document as well. They were put together by the National Australian Association of Teachers of the Deaf, and they are used by universities and by the association to make sure that when teachers are trained as teachers of the deaf, that they receive the training in those areas that we deem as being important. And so that does mean speech and language development, it does mean auditory skills and knowledge and development, it does mean about deaf language and culture, and on and on. So there are a whole heap, but they're the things that since 1935, teachers of the deaf have documented what teachers of the deaf should do, and so so it's really key that when you've got a special educated hearing or you're working with teachers of the deaf and hard of hearing kids, that you actually are using the elaborations, particularly if you don't have a teacher of the deaf background. And that is the end. So we've got time for some questions.
Nothing in the chat at the moment. If anyone's got any questions, pop them in.
Right, if you've got any questions, pop them into the chat. Otherwise, we can have an early dinner.
It looks like there aren't any questions in the chat.
So there's no questions in the chat? Big thank you, Claire, for tonight. It was really, really interesting. We really appreciate you going through the elaborations and having the opportunity to think about how we can support teachers of the deaf and how we can be supportive as well. So it was really eye-opening, so thank you for that. Thank you to the interpreters tonight. Thank you to the PD committee for AATD SA. We're a non-for-profit organisation. We're all volunteers. So if you're interested, you're welcome to join an AATD. We have a Facebook page. If you would like to provide feedback, please do that through the website, which is aatdsa.org.au. Thank you again, Claire, so much. Really appreciate your work.
Thank you.
The second gift for tonight.
So now I've got chocolates and wine. So thank you. Oh,
I've got lots of thank yous in the chat from everyone as well. Great information to revisit. Very much appreciated. Thanks, Claire.
Thank you.